Good afternoon, everyone. Let us start our program with the blessings of God. I would like to invite Ms. Megha, third semester Zoology Department student, for the prayer. Megha, please.
വിദ്യകൾ വീണയ്ക്കാൻ നെയ്തിരി തെളിക്കാൻ നിൽക്കുന്നു ഈശ്വര തവ സന്നിധേ മനസ്സിൻ കോവിൽ നിറയണം നീ ദിവ്യ ജ്യോതിസിൻ കരുണാകരം മനസ്സിൻ കോവിൽ നിറയണം ദിവ്യ ജ്യോതിസിൻ കരുണാമൃതം സത്യസനാതന ധർമ്മം പുണരാൻ നീതിതൻ പാതയിൽ ചരിച്ചിടുക സെന്തോമസിൻ മക്കളുങ്ങൾ സെന്തോമസിൻ മക്കളുങ്ങൾ പുലർക്കാലവേള നമിച്ചിരുന്നു. താങ്ക് യു.
Thank you, Megha. I would like to invite Dr. C.F. Binoy, Chief Superintendent of Examination and Associate Professor, Department of Zoology, for the welcome speech.
Respected Principal, Reverend Dr. Martin Kodamrat, respected Vice Principal, Dr. E.D. John, Coordinator of the program, Dr. Vinda K. John, the Chief Guest of the day and the Speaker of this particular program, the distinguished speaker, Dr.S. Sreekumar sir, then dear students, third semester as well as fifth semester students, a warm good afternoon to all of you. It has been a pleasure to conduct this program, the audit course program on disaster management. In the Kerala scenario, we know that after 2018, after the deluge in Kerala, we have been witnessing several catastrophes connected to nature in every year. So this year also we have seen floods in the southern states of Kerala. Mostly, the Thrissur area or the northern Kerala has been spared this time. But the southern states, southern districts of Kerala, like Kottayam, then Kollam, Trivandrum, they have been all been devastated by the floods of 2021. So the disasters in the case of our state, it has been coming one after another after 2018. So this audit course on the management of disasters and what are the reasons for these disasters, how we can manage how we can counter these measures, what all countermeasures we have to take in order to mitigate these disasters. So these kind of aspects will be discussed in this particular audit course. And in this context, I think this audit course is very relevant. I think the students will be benefited by attending this course. And we have a very distinguished speaker, Dr.S. Sreekumar sir, a well-known geologist from the state of Kerala. Now he is the director of IRTC Mundur. So you can interact with the speaker, the distinguished speaker, and you can clear your doubts and you can learn a lot about how we can manage the disasters or how we can counter the disasters, and also how we can, we can conserve the nature so that this kind of natural disasters we can reduce them. So in this context, I would like to welcome all of you, especially our principal, Reverend Father Martin Colombreth. He is leading the college in a excellent manner for the last 10 or 12 years. And this year, this academic year, he has been the principal of the college. So on behalf of the Department of Zoology and on behalf of the coordinators of this audit course, I welcome Reverend Father Martin Colombreth to this program. Our vice principal, Dr. E.D. John sir, he is the professor of English, and he is managing the self-financing section of our college. He is here to facilitate this function. I wholeheartedly welcome Professor E.D. John sir to this program. The coordinator of this program is Dr. Vimala K. John, Assistant Professor of Zoology. She has been working for the conduct of this program for the last few days. So this is a culmination of the efforts made by Dr. Vimala K. John as well as our head of the department, Dr. C.V. David sir. So on behalf of the department, I welcome both Dr. Vimala K. John, the coordinator, as well as Dr. C.V. David sir, our head of the department, to this program. And the distinguished speaker of the day is Dr. Sreekumar sir. He was the professor of geology in the Department of Environmental Sciences and the Department of Geology in the Christ College, Irinjalakuda, earlier. And now he is the director of IRTC, Mundur. And he is a very well-known scientist and geologist. And he has been giving a lot of this type of distinguished lectures and seminars in different parts of Kerala as well as outside Kerala. He is a well-known figure in this field of disaster management. So I think we will be benefited. The students of St. Thomas College will be benefited from Dr. Sreekumar sir from his talk. So on behalf of the coordinators, I welcome Dr. Sreekumar sir to this program. Finally, I would like to welcome all the students, especially the 5th semester UG BSc students, as well as the 3rd semester students who are attending this program. So I think, after the classes, you will be in your houses. I think you will be benefited by attending this program. As already I mentioned, the topic is a very relevant topic, and we all have the responsibility to manage and to counter these disasters. And of course, in Kerala, now we are witnessing the different catastrophe every year, natural catastrophe every year. So how we can control or how we can mitigate these disasters, I think Sreekumar sir will be explaining that. So on behalf of the coordinators and the coordinating team, I welcome all the students to this program. Finally, I welcome you all, and I hand over, for the presidential address, I welcome Reverend Father Martin Colombreth, our beloved principal, to deliver the presidential address. Thank you. Thank you all.
So good afternoon to one and all. Respected Dr.S. Sreekumar, resource person of the day, Dr. E.D. John, Vice Principal, Dr. Binoy sir, Dr. Vimala K. John, the coordinator of the program, and dear faculty members, dear students. I have heard that Bangladesh was prone to floods, and they used to build wooden houses so that they can float on the water whenever floods comes. And recurrently, they had floods. Whereas in Kerala, we were considered to be very safe, and we thought that our small state is protected by the Western Ghats in the eastern side and the Arabian Sea in the western side. And we were proudly saying we are the God's own people and ours is the God's own country until recently. But now the status has terribly changed, and we are faced with atrocities one after another. And now a new subject has to be taught to one and all in Kerala, that is disaster management. And now we have plenty of disasters, so that it has to be managed. And the basic information regarding disaster management has to be taught even in schools and colleges, and every one of us, each and every one of us in Kerala are supposed to be well aware of the whenever an emergency comes up, how can we tackle it. So precisely there's a need, it is a need of the hour, and we have this webinar, and I'm happy that some UG students as well as third some UG students are attending this webinar. And recently I'm reminded of a program when I attended. It was on disaster management. I was surprised to hear that there are 7 types of fire. Now 7 types of fire, and it has to be quenched differently. So likewise plenty of information is needed so that we can handle with a particular kind of fire. We normally think that water is the solution for all kinds of fires. It is a blunder. So water is not a solution to all kinds of fires. So likewise there are plenty of information which we are in need of. So I think that this webinar will be of great help, having a basic understanding on disaster management. I have a very resourceful, vibrant resource person, Dr.S. Sreekumar, and wishing you all the best for this webinar. With all your permission, I declare this webinar being inaugurated. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Father. Next, I would like to invite our beloved Vice Principal, Professor Dr. E.D. John, for the felicitation speech.
Dear Father Dr. Martin, our principal, the resource person of the day, Dr.S. Sreekumar, my own esteemed colleagues and students. It's with immense pleasure and joy that I remain here today to felicitate the function that's to be held by our college, specially orienting the students of a degree course, and as per the directives of the government and the university, who are undergoing the audit course. Actually, audit course is an extra knowledge that students gain together with their degree studies. In whatever discipline a student undergoes the degree course, it's expected that some additional knowledge should also be acquired by the student. In the course of time, he or she will have a proper outlook to the situations of life and philosophy of living. As we know, nowadays, man recedes from the sublimities of nature, and nature then and there reminds man his necessity to be one with nature, to coexist with natural sublimities. So I think Professor Dr. Sreekumar is the fit first person to enlighten us for he has got a vast knowledge in elements related to geology and cosmic existence. This occasion, I wish every student of ours to gain from the enlightenment that's imparted by Dr. S. Sreekumar. Wishing you all the best. I remain. Thank you.
Thank you, John sir. Next, our resource person, Dr. S. Sreekumar. He is retired as a professor from Christ College, Irinjalakuda, with over decades of experience in teaching and research in the Department of Geology and Environmental Science. His area of interest include environment and related studies, and he had been a resource person of UNDP GOI and the coordinator for disaster management in the past decades. And he has authored several articles, books, and research publications, as well as made several presentations in his area of expertise all over India. He has the recipient of some prestigious awards from government bodies, and he had held the position of a member in several government and academic bodies for several years. Now, Dr. S. Sreekumar is services as Director of Integrated Rural Technology Center, Palakkad. Sir, I hardly welcome you for delivering the speech. Sir, please.
So, good afternoon to you all, uh, Reverend Father Principal, uh, Vice Principal, all teachers, and dear students. And you know, the disaster management is going to be one of the main subject in many of the universities and also in technological universities, because as earlier mentioned here, the type of building, what type of building that we can make in a vulnerable situation, and what type of solution that we can give in flood hit areas. So these are all very important things, and we have to frame ourselves or tune ourselves to the changing situation. And you know that Cuba is a country that experienced repeated natural disasters, and that actually made number of loss of life as well as the property in Cuba. And what they did was they taught the students, the school students, about the disaster management. They trained them, gave adequate knowledge about different type of disasters, and thus they were able to build up, or they were able to build up the capacity of the people in that country. And now you see that they are efficient enough to respond to the situation, what type of disaster, whenever the disaster comes, they can definitely, they can face the situation bravely. And so I would like to share some of my slides, and 1 minute. Okay. Can you see? I think some problem. Can you see the slides? Can you see the slides? No. Can you see the slide? No, you cannot see, isn't it? Can you see the slide? Hello? Hello? I am not getting any response from you. Hello? Can you share this? Can you see? Hello? 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 Hello?
ഹലോ സാറേ, കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല സാറേ.
കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ലല്ലേ? പക്ഷെ ഞാൻ
ഇല്ല,
ഷെയർ
ഇല്ല.
ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. സ്ക്രീൻ ഷെയർ സ്ക്രീൻ ചെയ്തു.
ആ
ഷെയർ സ്ക്രീൻ ചെയ്തു. ബട്ട് ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് ഓക്കെ.
സാറേ, വന്നിട്ടില്ല.
വന്നിട്ടില്ല. ഓക്കെ.
വന്നോ?
ഞാൻ എന്നാ ഒന്നൂടെ some problem in sharing the hello.
Sir, take your own time. No problem.
അല്ല, ഇത് ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല. ഞാൻ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്, പക്ഷേ താഴെ ഷെയർ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, അത് ഞാൻ ക്ലിക്ക് ചെയ്തു. ഞാനത് ഓപ്പൺ ചെയ്തിട്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഓക്കെ.
സാർ ഒന്നുകൂടി ട്രൈ ചെയ്യാമോ?
ഞാൻ ട്രൈ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. ഞാനത് ഓപ്പൺ ചെയ്തിട്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. സാധാരണ ഇപ്പം ഗൂഗിൾ മീറ്റിലൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ ഷെയർ സ്ക്രീൻ അടിച്ചാൽ വരണമല്ലോ.
പക്ഷേ ഇതില് സ്ക്രീൻ പോപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല.
ഞാൻ ഒന്നുകൂടെ ഒന്ന് എക്സിറ്റ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് കയറട്ടെ.
അതെ, ഇതിൽ ഷെയർ കൊടുക്കാൻ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ?
പുള്ളി ഷെയർ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്, പക്ഷെ കുറെ വിൻഡോസ് ഒരുമിച്ച് കയറി വരിക. ഒരു വിൻഡോ ആയിട്ടല്ല വരുന്നത്. നമ്മളത്
കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ?
Yes, sir. കാണുന്നുണ്ട്.
കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ?
ആ,
പക്ഷേ
പിന്നെ പോയി.
കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ?
ഇപ്പൊ ക്ലിയർ ആകുന്നില്ല സർ.
കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ?
ഹലോ സാർ. ഹലോ സാർ, സാറിന്റെ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ മാത്രം ഓൺ ആക്കിയിട്ട് പ്രസന്റേഷനിൽ നോക്കി സംസാരിച്ചാൽ മതി. സാറ് മെയിൻ മെനുവിലേക്ക് പിന്നീട് തിരിച്ചു വരണ്ട. അത് വരുമ്പോഴാണ് ഈ എറർ കാണിക്കുന്നത്. സാറിന്റെ സ്ലൈഡ് മാത്രമായിട്ട് ഓൺ ആക്കൂ, ഷെയർ ചെയ്യൂ.
സ്ലൈഡ് മാത്രം.
അതിൽ എൻ്റെയർ സ്ക്രീൻ കൊടുത്തിട്ട് സാറിന്റെ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ സാർ ഓൺ ആക്കിയിട്ടാൽ മതി.
ഞാൻ ഷെയർ സ്ക്രീൻ എടുത്തു, ഷെയർ സ്ക്രീൻ കൊടുത്തു.
ഓക്കെ.
ഇപ്പൊ കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ?
വരുന്നുണ്ട് വെയിറ്റ്.
പക്ഷെ എനിക്കൊന്നും കാണുന്നില്ല.
ഷെയർ ചെയ്തോ
ഷെയർ ചെയ്തു. കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ? ഇല്ലല്ലോ.
അത് ഇല്ല. സാർ
സാധാരണ
നേരത്തെ ചെയ്തിട്ട് പ്രസന്റേഷൻ മാത്രമാക്കി ഓൺ ആക്കിയിട്ടാലും മതി. സാറിന്റെ ഓക്കെ ഇപ്പൊ വരുന്നുണ്ട് വെയിറ്റ്.
ഓക്കെ. ഓ അത് ശരി. ഓക്കെ. ഇപ്പൊ എന്റെ പവർ പോയിന്റ് ഇട്ടതേ ഉള്ളൂ. ശരി. ഓക്കെ.
സാർ ഇങ്ങനെ ചെയ്തിട്ട് സ്ക്രീൻ മാറ്റി പോയാൽ മതി. നെക്സ്റ്റ് സ്ലൈഡ് ആക്കി ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്താൽ മതി.
ഓക്കെ. ഇപ്പൊ ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ അല്ലല്ലോ അല്ലേ?
ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ അല്ല.
ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ ഇസ് നോട്ട് F1.
സാർ താഴെ സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോന്റെ ഓപ്ഷൻ ഉണ്ട്. ആ മിനിമൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന്റെ ഭാഗത്ത് പ്രസന്റേഷൻ മോഡ് ഉണ്ട് അവിടെ സൈഡിൽ ഏറ്റവും താഴെ റൈറ്റ് സൈഡ്
അവിടെ. ഓക്കെ.
ബോട്ടം.
സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ. ഓക്കെ.
ഓക്കെ ഫൈൻ സാർ.
Okay. So my talk will be of two stages. One will be what is disaster management, what is disaster, and how we can manage the different kind of disasters. Then the first part. The second part that will include different type of disasters in Kerala and how we can mitigate the effect of the different disasters in Kerala. So there are two parts in the presentation. What is a disaster? So disaster is a serious disruption of the functioning of a community or society which involve widespread human, material, economic or environmental impacts that exceed the ability of the affected community or severity or to the society. And we cannot even with our resources we may not be able to cope up with the situation. So that is called as a disaster. So even coronavirus that happened, a pandemic that appeared everywhere in the world, so that is a disaster. That it's a biological disaster that happened all over the world. And disaster management is how to deal with the human, material, economic or environmental impacts of disasters. So that is called as the disaster management. So naturally you see that when we talk about the disasters, the characteristic of a disaster, it is very unpredictable, and you see that uncontrollable, and you see that controlling a disaster is very difficult. The speed, urgency of the situation, length of forewarning, that last time you remember some of the severe depressions. We know that depressions are coming, and we say that it is a severe depression. But within 3 hours, these severe depressions, they are growing to a large cyclone. So that type of, you see that a sudden, we cannot, when we want something, you see that is developing into a bigger disaster. Then duration of impact, you see that sometimes the disaster may be for a few seconds or minute. For example, for the earthquake, you see that it is just for a few minutes or seconds. And during that time itself, you see that the building collapse, bridges collapse, and other things happens. But sometimes you see that the impact will, the impact of the disaster will remain for months or year together. Sometimes you see that the volcanic eruption that is happening in some places. You can see that the aerosols that is remaining in the atmosphere, and that will just hinder the sun rays to penetrate, and that is never penetrating to the earth's surface. In such a cases, you see that no light is coming for several months together, and you see that in such situation, you see that no vegetation will be there, and you see that no agriculture produces, the yield will be very low. So this is an impact because of some type of volcanic eruption. Then the scope and intensity of the impact, and you see that the intensity is sometimes it is mild and sometimes it is of great impact. And when we talk about the disaster reduction events, disaster DRR events, disaster risk reduction events, and we have some history. If you look at the last 50 to 59 and the present scenario, you can see that the natural catastrophes are increasing, and it has increased fourfold with 14 times economic losses. So this change is happening from 1950-59, that decade if you take, and the present decade if you take, you see that the number of catastrophes have increased fourfold, and the loss due to the catastrophes or disasters that also have increased 14 times. And if you take the urban population, 1950 it was only 50%, but when you come to 2000, 85% of the urban population is under the threat of different type of disasters. And the increase in population, and that is a very important factor that is influencing, because we are exposing, more and more people are exposed to the disasters, whether it is natural or man-made. We are more exposed to the atmosphere, and therefore the risk will be more. Then the environmental degradation that is happening, because our you see that our wetlands, our beaches, or our rivers, the degradation of all this ecosystem, that is adding, or that is making the disasters vulnerable. So that is the thing that is happening. Then apart from that, you see that the present scenario, if you look at, you can see the climate change is a big factor, because it is unpredictable and unexpected extreme climatic events are coming in different parts of the world. So everything together, environmental degradation by man and by human beings, that is on one side, the climate change that is causing the changes, and then you see that the great population that is exposed to a vulnerable position. So all these cases will lead to the increase in the natural disasters that is happening in the world. And you see that if you track the history, 1990 to 1999, International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction. That was a Yokohama conference, and that was a conference in which you see that the different countries came. They sat together and they made some plans and strategies for reducing the disaster risk. Then after that, in 2001, International Strategy for Disaster Risk Reduction, that is called the ISDR, that is also under the UN, that was made in 2001. Then in connection with that, we have Hugo Framework for Action, 2005 to 2015. Then we have the Sendai Framework of Disaster Risk Reduction, 2015 to 2013. So this is the period during which we are passing, and we are everywhere in the world. You see that the number of natural disasters are increasing. And so what type of things, you see that some kind of things that we have to do for mitigating the effect. The natural phenomenon that will happen. Natural, say you see that the earthquake will happen, the tsunami may happen, cyclone may happen. All these kind of natural phenomenon will occur in the world. But you see that we can reduce the impact of these disasters. So that is what we are planning in disaster risk reduction. We cannot go and prevent these kind of hydrometeorological hazards. We cannot go and prevent that. That will happen. But what we are doing is we are trying to minimize the effect of these disasters. And if you look at the global context, you see that the Haiti earthquake, the last 10 years I am taking, you can see the Haiti earthquake that happened in 2010. How many death toll due to Haiti earthquake? Then in Japan, heat wave 2010, Russian heat wave, Brazil flood and mudslide in 2011, Japan earthquake and tsunami again in 2011, 20,000 people died, Pakistan flood 2014, and you can see that the latest one, that Australia bushfire in 2019, and you can, in the global level itself, you can see the changes due to the climatic change and the disasters. And you see that when you take the present scenario 2021 itself, you can see that the temperature in African countries and also in some parts of America, that has increased. It has gone, sometimes it has gone beyond 50 degrees Celsius. Just imagine, greater than 50 degrees Celsius. So in some part of the globe, we are experiencing the hike in the temperature, drought, and other kind of things. But in other parts of the world, we are experiencing, you see that even now in India and Kerala, we are experiencing severe extreme or extreme events, extreme climatic events we are experiencing. So this kind of the different part of the globe experiencing different natural hazards and natural disasters. That is what we are experiencing today. So from the global part, when you come to India, you see that Latur earthquake in 1993. So this is a history, a very good history of the Indian disasters. If you look, Latur earthquake in 1993. We believe that earthquake cannot happen in South Peninsular India. South Peninsular India means that includes Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, this part. We never expected an earthquake of that magnitude, greater than 6, can happen in this area. But that happened in 1993. And a lot of damage happened in Maharashtra, Latur. Then Odisha super cyclone in 1999. Almost you see that thousands of people died in Odisha super cyclone in 1999 around the coastal part of the Odisha. Then we had Bhuj earthquake in 2001. Bhuj is in Gujarat. You know that that place is already identified by the geologists as a highly prone area to earthquake. It is a seismic prone area. So when you go for building practices, you must be very careful. You have to give proper attention when you make houses, particularly multi-story building. So building code should be there. We have already warned the people like that, but you see that nobody care the warnings given by the scientist. And you see the Bhuj earthquake happened in 2001, and the entire part of the Bhuj was completely destroyed. Then tsunami 2004. And you know, as a geologist, while I was working in Christ College, I taught tsunami, but it is 1 or 2 sentences about the tsunami, because tsunami is a giant seismic sea wave. So you see that now the Indian subcontinent also has faced tsunami in 2004. This is how the changes happening in India. We never expected a disaster like tsunami can happen in India, but that also happened in India. Then after that, you see that the Kashmir earthquake, and you know that Uttarakhand flood in 2013, Odisha super cyclone again 2013, 14, Hudhud cyclone. You can see the repeated cyclone, flood, Chennai flood. We never expected the flood can happen in Chennai, where you see that it was due to the reclamation of the wetlands, and they constructed houses, buildings everywhere, and you see that entire wetland were completely reclaimed, and then they went for building construction, and that happened. Chennai flood, even 2021 also, Chennai experienced flood. Then you see that the Oki cyclone, and at least you see that cyclone was not very common in Kerala. But you see that the Oki cyclone in 2001, 2017, that was something that we never expected. Oki cyclone, that type of cyclone will happen in Kerala. But now you see that the chances of cyclone is increasing because of the global warming in the Arabian Sea. And you see that we are expecting deep depressions, we are expecting more cyclones in the future days. And when you come to the flood and landslide series, 2018, 19, 20, even now it is continuing. So this is how it is going. You can see the intensity, the frequency of these kind of disasters have increased all parts of India. And you see that the Geja cyclone, Fani cyclone, then Bihar flood in 2019, Amphan cyclone 2020. These are all cyclones that we have experienced in the East Coast as well as the West Coast. Even West Coast also we have experienced number of cyclones like this. So this is something we want to do something for that one. We have to manage that one. We cannot prevent that one, but we can mitigate the effect by awareness and by the capacity building. And the main reason for the repeated kind of cyclones and other kind of flood and other kind of events, it is mainly because of the climate change. And climate change has got a very important role in making these kind of disasters, global warming and the climate change. And it is, when you look at, you know that the COP26, that is the Conference of Parties, COP26, that held in Glasgow, November, this month, in November 2021, you see that there, you see that the entire the heads of many nations convened, and you see that how we can mitigate the effect of the climate change. That was the discussion. And we have to they have made some kind of plans and strategies to mitigate the effect. And you see that we have to reduce the carbon footprint, every nation. Only then you can see. So this is the climate change, the global warming, that can be controlled and that can be minimized or mitigated only by the decision from all the nations. So we have to think globally. But act. But you can, that is because in the base level, locally we have to act. Then only you can prevent a disaster. So climate change is something that is changing, happening, and all the nations must act, play a very important role in the climate change mitigation. But the disasters are due to this climate change plus some kind of regional or local level unscientific land use practices. So there we have to act. This local level of unscientific changes, what we can do is very important. Think globally and act locally. That must be our motto in facing the different type of disasters. And when you take the causal factors of disaster, as we have already mentioned, the population growth, environmental degradation, rapid urbanization, poverty. Poverty is a very important factor, There is inviting disasters. What is the difference between a hazard and a disaster? We talk about the natural phenomena like volcanoes or earthquakes or cyclones. These are natural phenomena. And these natural phenomena become disaster when there is loss of life, when there is loss of property, then that becomes a disaster. That is what we call the disaster. You see that in North India, if you go, you know that in severe cold situations, in January, February, these months, you see that the severe cold will be there. There you see that which group of people are vulnerable to the disaster. Because of the cold wave, you see that the poor people, those who are not having the proper clothing or shelter. So they are subjected to, or they become the victim of such cold wave. But if they have if they had very good clothes and shelter, you see that no disaster will happen. Cold wave will happen, but no disaster will happen. So this is how we have to think, or we have to tackle the disaster situations. We have already said the poverty, lack of resource bases, no shelter, no clothing, no insurance for the buildings and other shelters. And you see that the environmental degradation that includes the destruction of mangrove, our lakes, our wetlands, and the construction of huge dams. We are talking about Mullaperiyar and all, construction of huge dams, destructing vast area of forest. That is the shrinkage of forest area and the wetlands. Rapid urbanization. Everybody wants to settle in urban area. High rates that cannot afford the too much people in a particular unit area. So this uh, makes the problems, a lot of imbalances in the natural resource utilization and other things. And population growth, living crowded in areas, definitely that will be a problem. So what are the disasters in India? If you make a quick look at the disasters, because India has got a very long coastline, 5,700 kilometer long coastline is there for India. And you see that this coastline is prone to cyclones. And this coastline is prone to tsunami. High waves, tidal waves can come. Coastal erosion can come. And you see that our coastlines are mostly thickly populated. You take Mumbai, you take Chennai, you take Kerala, Cochin. They are all thickly populated. The density of population is very high. So all these areas, because of the global warming, you see that the level of sea level is also increasing, and that can submerge sometimes. Sometimes you see that our Mandro Turut and some of the islands that is under the threat of the sea level changes. So that is there, and the cyclonic storms can happen. So we are under threat of, because we have got a long stretch of coastline. All these kind of disasters can happen along the coast. Then floods. You see that the floods. We talk about the floods in Bihar or Uttar Pradesh and other areas, Himalayan floods and all. But now you see that even in Chennai and even in Kerala, we are facing floods, and we are going for flood management. See the changes. So in 2018, Kutanad and that region, we experienced the floods. We were not able to do anything. So this kind of thing is happening every year in Kerala. Then you take the drought. When I talk about the extreme events like the rainfall, now we are having high rainfall. But you see that the rain, the next, after 2 months after, say February or March, you can see that most of our areas that becomes dry, and water level in the wells may go down. So we are experiencing drought. More and more areas becoming drought-prone areas in Kerala and also in India. If you go to Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, in different areas, because we are having the Mullaperiyar and we are giving water to the Tamil Nadu, and that is why you see that 5 to 6 districts are still alive, only because we are giving water for agriculture and for their life. So that is also becoming a problem. So the flood and drought, they are the two faces of the same coin. One is rainfall, the other without rainfall. That is the situation. Then you come to the seismology, earthquake, and you see that 55% of the total India is prone to seismic sonation, seismicity. We know that Himalayan region, Assam and that region, some kind of Bihar, some kind of earthquake can happen. But it is not like that. In 1993, if it can happen in Maharashtra in Latur, then why can't it happen in Kerala also? So we must take care. And you see that Kerala is coming under zone 3, Delhi is coming under zone 4, and the Himalayan, Kutch, Gujarat, these are all coming under zone 5. Zone 5 means that is the one where maximum magnitude of earthquake can happen. That's it. Then the landslides. We have experienced the landslides in the Western Ghats, in many of the hilly district is, except Alappuzha. There you see that all the district we have got the hilly regions where you see that we are experiencing landslides and soil piping. They are two very important events that is happening in Kerala. So you see that global scenario and also even in Indian scenario, you see that the disasters are increasing, and the severity index for the last few years, if you look at, you can see that even the epidemics like the cyclone or the H1N1 flu and everything, you can see that is also increasing because of the change in temperature, change in climate and everything. And therefore, how to how to mitigate the effect of disaster. That is called as the disaster management plan. So every country has got disaster management plan. Only in India, you see that we also started disaster management plan and the strategies only in 2005. Up to 2005, we were not having disaster management plan. India were not having. But after 2005, the government of India introduced disaster management plan and disaster management policy. And you see that now every state has got a disaster management policy and disaster management act. What is this disaster management plan? Before the disaster, until 2005, our plan was just to remain, or we will remain up to the disaster to come. We will wait for the disaster to come. You see that the disaster will happen. Then we go for rescue, relief operation, rehabilitation, shifting the people from one region to another, like that. But that is not a scientific disaster management plan. So what we have to do is, we have to make before disaster, that is called the pre-disaster. We call this one as the pre-disaster phase. This is called as the pre-disaster phase. And this is called the post-disaster phase, after disaster, post-disaster phase. In the pre-disaster phase, we have got the preparedness, we have got the prevention, we have got the mitigation. These are all the different stages in the pre-disaster phase. And after the disaster, what we have to do? Response. How to respond to the situation. The relief and rescue operation, rehabilitation, reconstruction, all this comes after a disaster. So earlier we were giving emphasis only for this one. Now it is not like that. We give much attention to the pre-disaster phase for the preparedness, prevention, mitigation. So if we do all these two together, then you see that is called as a sustainable development, and you see that will be that is more beneficial to our economy. Otherwise, we are giving more and more money for this one. But if you make preparedness, that is more economical. So that is how we plan disaster management plan: a pre-disaster phase and a post-disaster phase. I don't know, you may be remembering the disaster when came, that is the tsunami when came in 2004. And 2004, when the tsunami came, you see that many people were they were jogging. Some people were jogging along the coastal tract of Thailand. Thailand, they were jogging. Some people were walking along the beaches, and suddenly the sea wave retreated back. And you see that some along the beach of Thailand, some students were there. And you see that one girl student was there, and she studied geography, and she said that just by seeing the retreat of the sea wave, she said that something is going to happen, some kind of tsunami is going to happen. Therefore, we can move from this beach as early as possible. So that girl, some 17 or 16 or 17 years old, she, along with the visitors from England, they together, some 20 people were there. That group, all these people moved upward to an elevated place, and you see that after within 25 minutes, you see that the entire sea wave came back and that dashed against the coastal tract, and you see that many places were submerged underwater, and you see that these people escape from the disaster because they know how to respond to the situation. So what is the response? They know that if the tsunami happens, the better way is to move upwards, move to an elevated place. But you see that, you can see in many of our pictures, I will show you tomorrow, you can see that many people in Kerala, in India, along the Chennai, Madras coast, they were just waiting and seeing. They were waiting along the coastal tract to see the tsunami. What happened? The tsunami came, and the tsunami waves took the lives of the many people. They were watching the tsunami along the coastal tract. So that is called the response. How we respond to the situation. Suppose if there is a fire, how to respond? You must know. If there is flooding, you see that now you see that the school, in many of the schools, the students are given training for the swimming. That's very good, because if a flood is there, then how to respond to the situation. Then if it is a fire, how to respond to the situation. We must know. If in the laboratory, you see that in our colleges and universities, you see that the laboratories where the students and also the teachers are working there. So they are usually they are fiddling with the test tube, and also with they are acting with hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, and etc. etc. They are heating it. So if some fire happens, what you have to do, you must learn you must learn yourself, and we have to respond to the situation. Like that for every disaster. For an earthquake, how to respond. For a fire, how to respond. For landslide, how to respond. For different disasters, you have to respond differently. So we have to teach the students and the public regarding the response to the different disasters. Then comes the relief and rescue operation. How to, the relief. Suppose you see that sometimes the people will be buried under debris in a landslide. So how to rescue? So there must be a trained team. So if there is a trained team, they can reach there at the spot, and they can do the exercise, the rescue operation, and you see that is considered to be better one. And you see that any time after a disaster is very, very precious. That is called the golden hour. So during that time, if we can react, we can reduce the loss of life. So that is the very important thing. Then rehabilitation. We are taking the people to a safe shelter. That is very important. Then reconstruction of the damaged building. That is very important in the post-disaster phenomenon. Then what is pre-disaster phase? Before disaster, preparedness. That we were lacking in that one, preparedness. What type of preparedness that we can be? Well, we can say land use planning. The Western Ghat, you see that the Western Ghat, for the preservation of the Western Ghats, we were talking about the Professor Madhav Gadgil report, Western Ghat report. There you see that that's a preparedness, because landslides and floods can happen in Western Ghats. So we have to go for zoning. Which are the places where we can go for quarry? Which are the places where we can go for building, agriculture? So that kind of zonation, that must be there in different areas. That's the type of preparedness that we can building codes. Then the vulnerability analysis. We can. I have told you earlier, Cuba, how they prepare the public awareness, and also include the syllabus in the schools. These are all preparedness that we can make before a disaster. Then comes the prevention. In the prevention, we give for you see that the scientific studies, warning system we can develop. Now you see that we have got a warning system for climate, isn't it? For rainfall, we can give warning. 5 days warning are given before the cyclone, and also we can give nowcast warning is there. That is before 3 hours we can say what is happening, going to happen in Kerala or India. So this kind of warning system and also the vulnerability analysis are all part of the prevention. So the scientists must look into these factors. Then the mitigation, whatever things that we do, what are the do's and don'ts, temporary, how, I mean, all these kind of things comes under the mitigation. So there are some terms that we come across in disaster management. What is risk? The measure of the expected losses due to a hazard event, that is called as a risk. So we know that a landslide is going to happen in an area. So that is a hazard. And because of, if a landslide happens there, if an event happens there, how many people will die? Because how many you can identify the if you identify the area which is vulnerable to landslide, we can say how many settlements are there, how many people are there, how much agriculture area is there. That we can make an assessment. So that kind of expected losses due to a hazard is called as the risk. So we must calculate the risk. Now you see that the Kerala government and also in India in different parts, we are all doing this kind of risk calculation. That is very important. That depends upon the nature of the hazard and vulnerability of the element which are affected and economic value of the element. So the risk is differently for the different. Then comes the vulnerability. What is vulnerability? That is the extent to which the community, structure, service, and geographic area is likely to be damaged or disrupted by the impact of a particular hazard. So that is called the vulnerability. So I can say that this area is vulnerable to coastal erosion. This much area in, say, in Sneha Thiram, Munnavidia, that area, some of the areas. Scientifically, we can say that whether we can study and we can say whether it is vulnerable to coastal erosion. So that is called vulnerability. So the degree of vulnerability depends on condition of human settlements and their infrastructure, the efficiency of administration in disaster management, the awareness among people. All these three are very important factors that influence the vulnerability. What do you mean by physical vulnerability and socio-economic vulnerability? Because you say that if it is a coastal tract, you are making, say, light roofed houses. That is a house that is thatched houses that we are making along the coastal tract. You know, when a cyclonic storm that comes along the coastal tract, this can be easily blown off by the wind. So that is called the physical vulnerability. So a light roofed houses are not suitable, or that is more vulnerable in a cyclone prone area. But you see that if an area is prone to earthquake, what type of building you will make? You won't make a building of say concrete type of building. You won't make in a highly hazardous zone, say zone 5 and all. What type of building you can make? You have to make light roofed houses. So these light roofed houses are suitable in a highly seismic zone area. But a concrete building is more safer in a cyclone prone area. So that is called the physical vulnerability. So what type of houses, what type of buildings are more vulnerable to the different type of disasters? That is very important, and accordingly we have to build our houses. Then comes the socio-economic vulnerability. And the socio-economic vulnerability, you see that the poor people, whenever the disaster happens in the world, you just come, you take the account of the victims. You can see that very poor people, socially and economically backward people, they are all vulnerable to disasters. I've told you in the earlier session itself that those who are having no shelter and clothing, they are more vulnerable to the cold wave. So like that, you see that very poor people, they are more vulnerable to any kind of disaster. So that is why we are saying that we have to increase the capacity. We have to give, the infrastructure facilities of the poor people, that must be enhanced, and that is very important in disaster management. And the prevention comes the effective utilization of available information on hazard. I have told you that the proper warning, public announcement is very important. So if a flood happens, suppose if a dam is opening, now we have after 2018, we are practicing that one very effectively. Before that, we were not practicing in all the dams, but now you see that we are now effective. When we are going to open the shutter of any kind of the dam, you can see that we are giving not prior notification for the people living along the banks of the river, and we are saying that we are going to the flood inundation can happen, the water level may increase in the river, and therefore the people living along the floodplains of the river must move from their settlement place to some other safe zones. So that is a kind of prevention. Effective land use planning, reduce vulnerability of the built environment, hazard resistant design, evaluation and necessary retrofitting, building codes, zonation, vulnerability analysis, all are preventive measures and preparedness measures that we can. And also in preparedness, we give mock drills for the people. So if you go to the area where more factories are there, like the Aliwa region, you can see that there number of factories are working there. So sometimes you see that when there is gas leak, we inform the local people that by siren, a siren is there. So when the siren is there, a typical siren is there, then you see that some kind of gas leakage has happened. So the people must, the people around the factory must give, they must be given mock drills and what they have to do and what they don't do during this time. They must be informed and they must be given mock drills for that. 1984 Bobal Gas Tragedy happened, and you see that the Bobal Gas Tragedy, many people died, and you see that when there is a gas leak, so you see that around the factories there is a flag-like structure is there. Flag is there, a balloon-like flag is flying. You can see. So if you go to airport, you can see that one flag-like thing that is flying in the direction of the wind. So if you notice in which direction the flag or that type of balloon is floating or flying, that is the direction of the wind. So if there is a gas leak, you have to move in the opposite direction. That is the purpose why we have installed this kind of flags in many of these such areas. So in which direction the wind is blowing, you have to move opposite. If you want to run, you have to run in the opposite direction by looking or seeing this kind of flag. So that is a very important thing. And the communities and stakeholders to respond efficiently after a disaster, and proper public addressing system should be there. Sometimes you have to give the pocket radios and all in such disaster areas, disaster prone areas, that can effectively mitigate the effect of the disaster, because they can evacuate from this area to a safer area during this time. So this kind of preparedness is very important. Even in Kerala, if you look at nowadays, you can see and also in future also we have to expect more and more disasters. So we have to develop more warning system. We have to give more site-specific, what do you call, the forecast system for climate, rainfall particularly, and this will help us to mitigate the effect of disasters. Then the emergency response and relief is very important. Involvement of government and stakeholders, moving the affected persons to safer location. And you see that there must be, if you know that a place is prone to a disaster, you have to train the people in that region. You remember the collector or the minister can come and save you. It is only the local people in that area, in that particular ward, can involve in such activities. We have got a lot of lessons. We have learned a lot of lessons. You see that that is why we are saying that we have to train the local people in managing this kind of situation. So evacuation, how rescue, how they can help. These are the things that we have to give proper classes and training. Then the food and medical attention. If you look, you can see that what type of food you have to give, what type of medicine you have to give. All idea that we must have an idea about that one. And also the search and rescue for the missing is also important. In flood-prone areas, we know that some training is given to our disaster. The students working, studying in disaster management course. That is, when somebody is drowned, you see that we try to take him, and we have to, the old water that is already taken by him must be completely brought out by some kind of exercises. So the people must know how to do that, and the local people must be aware of that. And this, you see that this is because of in a disaster management. After the disaster, you see that the people are brought to some kind of sometimes here in schools, sometimes some other shelter areas. So these are called as the relief camps. So in the relief camps, you see that many of the NSS volunteers in schools and colleges have gone there. You know that even I have gone in many of the relief camps. You see that what type of amenities that we can give, the infrastructure that we can give, that is very important in this. And if proper kind of cleanliness is not there in the relief camps, that will make big problems. So the Mumbai flood that happened, and after the flood, people were brought to relief camps. From there, you see that the epidemics, the plague broke out. So that is a secondary disaster that happened. So we must keep our relief camps very clean, pakka, and that is very important. Otherwise, you see that secondary disaster can. These are all the temporary type of latrines and tanks, septic tanks that we are installing in relief camps in the last few years, and we are having this kind of info. This is an incineration. You see that a lot of waste will come in the relief camps. So how to waste disposal even now is a problem. Even otherwise, it is a problem. So in disaster-prone areas, in the relief camps, this becomes more problem. So how to this is an incineration where you see the temperature is very high. So here you see that it is smokeless. You see this is an incinerator where very high temperature is given in this incinerator, and because of that the whole material is burned completely, and you see that the carbon residue that is left behind is very, very little. Just grams of carbon residue is left behind. So this is a very good method by which the atmosphere is not polluted and also our waste is managed. This is called a very high, technologically highly evolved type of incinerator that we are using. And basic civic amenities we have to provide for the relief camps. And you see that another very important thing is that you see that after a disaster, when the disaster happened, the tsunami in Kerala, Karudagapalli, I went there during that time in 2004. And I was shocked, because when I went there, you see that I could see the people, the students, small kids. They were after the tsunami. I came there and I visited that place, and I could see that the students they were under a trauma. They were suffering from trauma, and you see that they were not able to face the people. They were not able to go to the school, and you see that they were suffering from a kind of trauma. And how we can release these people from the trauma, that is very important. So the counseling, the psychologists, and all the social scientists can do a very good role in counseling after the disaster. And I know that many people in Wayanad, when a disaster happened, landslide happened, I went to a house after the disaster, 1 week after the landslide, and I went to a house, and a parent was there. The parent was there, and father was telling that, and his daughter was walking all along from his school to his house. While walking from the school to house, you see that the landslide came and the debris completely taken her life. So this is something he has seen in his mind. It is seen. So that is what we call the trauma, and how we can relieve them from this kind of trauma is very important. And counseling is a very important thing in disaster situation. And of course, building permanent shelter and homes improved. And 2018 and 2019 we have got repeated landslides. I am one of the member of the State Disaster Management Authority to look after the landslide, expert member for that one. I know that people are under fear. Even 2021, I went to Kozhikode, and you see that some kind of sound. They are hearing some kind of sound. We went and we examined. One of my friend from National Center for Earth Science Studies, he went and he examined all the area, and he said that from below the ground, you see that the loose material is going down, and therefore that is why the sound, the residents in that area hearing some kind of sound. And you see that small cracks are developing in the houses, and these cracks will develop in the future days because of this kind of phenomenon that is happening in Kerala. That is called as the soil piping. I will show you the slides in the next class all regarding this one. And so what I am saying is that, so the people are under threat now. The reconstruction is very important. How we can give them a safe shelter, that is very important in these days. So in the nutshell, what is disaster management is, you see that we know that risk is the potential dangerous situation. How many life can be lost, like agricultural area that can be lost, that is called the risk. And hazard, that is the event that can happen. Then vulnerability means how much vulnerable we are to disaster. Then capacity. So what in the disaster management, what we are doing is, we are trying to increase the capacity, our capacity, the capacity of the locals, the public, that is we are trying to increase. And we are trying to reduce the vulnerability. That may be by construction, by constructing houses according to the building codes, or new type, reconstructing or strengthening, retrofitting the houses. All this can reduce the vulnerability, and we have to increase the capacity. So if you increase the capacity to cope up with the disasters and reduce the vulnerability, then you see that we can reduce the risk. So this is called this is the equation, and you see that this is called as the disaster management. And this is the institute. Now you see that I have told you that Disaster Management Act came into India in 2005. That is the institutional mechanism. When in 2004, when the tsunami came, we were not able to coordinate the activities of the different activities of the line departments. But now we are able to say that who will be responsible for managing the disaster in a village, in a panchayat, like that. And you see that we are giving the responsibilities for the different people. Now there is a coordination for the disaster management activities in India and also in the state. So only in 2005 we have a very good conduct of meeting the disaster management. So you see that in all the disaster management, you know, the local people are very important. The first responder. So don't wait for somebody to come. You must be the first responder is we people. And we must have source of maximum information, local coping mechanism. Traditionally, you know that sometimes the traditional knowledge is there. That is sometimes very useful for meeting or coping the different type of disasters. So that we have to take. Some of our old parents or the grandparents may tell about the old disasters and all. So they have learned a lot. Sometimes that may be useful for us. So we have to develop that kind of traditional methods, and we have to collect all these kind of traditional knowledge in coping the different kind of disasters. And also the external resources, that is very important. So where to meet when a disaster comes, where we have to meet, where we have to make a call, that is all very important. And now the people have got an idea about that one. And so a paradigm shift from relief-centric response to a proactive prevention. So we have to emphasize on the preparedness, not wait for the disaster to come and act. That is not the procedure in disaster management. We have to get preparedness. That is more important. Warning system, public warning system, the effective kind of building codes, vulnerability analysis, all these are the very important thing. The mock drills and also the emergency plans and all kind of things are very important. And when we look at the type of disasters, and you can see that some in Indian condition, we can see that some 31 disasters are there, and water and climate related disasters are there. That is the flood, drainage and other things comes. Flash flood comes under this one. Cyclones, tornadoes and hurricanes, hailstorms, cloudburst, Meghaspodanam. That is now we are really reeling under the cloudburst, because unexpectedly you can see that the cumulonimbus clouds are coming and bursting and causing the landslides and the flash floods in different areas. This is something that is the direct effect of the climate change, extreme climate event, this cloudburst. And then we have the snow and avalanches, heat and cold winds both. Then you see that heat is a very important thing. If you take Kerala, you can see the number of days having greater than 30 degrees Celsius. That has increased in Kerala in the last 10 years, if you look at. And I was in Palakkad. Now I am not the director of Integrated Rural Technology Center. And when I was in Palakkad, I used to refer the automatic weather station data, and we could find that the number of heat days have increased a lot in Palakkad area. And on the heat days, when the temperature is high, greater than 30 degree, and you can see that the humidity is also very high. That is the problem in Kerala. When the humidity and the temperature both are high, then you see that the effect on our body, that is very high. That is, we feel the heat and moisture together. That will make the heat index very high. Heat index. So that will make us more unhealthy, and also a kind of tiredness and other things. So that is increasing. Then you see that the thunder and lightning. We actually underestimate thunder and lightning. You see that how many people are dying? What is your guess about the loss of life due to thunder and lightning? You may say that it may be 3 or 4 or less than a dozen. You may say, but it is not like that. Because of the thunder and lightning in Kerala, 70 people, that is the average estimate for the last 20 years. If you take in Kerala, it is due 70 people die in a year. Do you believe that? 70 people die. When there is an earthquake, or when there is a landslide, some 12 people died. You see that that will come in the newspaper, and you see that we consider at Pettimudi or Kavalapara. That will be in the news. But due to thunder and lightning, you see that one people from one part of the Thrissur, Irinjalakuda, one man from Kodagara, another from Vellikulangara. So that may be the death that is causing, and one may be from Parashala, or another one from the Kasaragod. So this one isolated ones together makes 70 at least a year. So that is a underestimated disaster in Kerala, thunder and lightning. Then comes the sea erosion. The Kerala coast is some 50% of the Kerala coast is prone to sea erosion, and now you see that the threat of tsunami is also there, and cyclonic storms are also there. Then comes the drought. You see that the drought, the total area reeling from drought has increased in the last 10 years, and you see that in 2016 Kerala we had a very, very bad drought situation, and you see that even in 2006 we had a drought situation, and that type of thing is increasing in Kerala. And then comes geologically related disasters like earthquakes in Vadakancheri. We have experienced Vadakancheri, Peachy, that region. We have small tremors. They are called tremors because they are not big earthquake, but they are small tremors with magnitude less than 3 or something like that we are experiencing. Even in Mullaperiyar, near Mullaperiyar, Pala, Iratipeta, that region, we have experienced earthquakes. Then landslides, that's a very common thing. That's a geohazard, geologically related hazard. Mud flows, dam bursts like Mullaperiyar and other dams of old age, that is there. And these are the things that we take. Then coming to the accident related, you see that the other one is a natural disaster, and these are all man-made, some of them, like the road and rail accidents, mine flooding, building collapse. Even now in Delhi and all, you see that the bridges under construction, sometimes it may collapse. A major building collapse, serial bomb blast, the one, the one that happened in 2008 Mumbai attack and other thing. That is something that is a Mumbai 2008. That is a man-made disaster. Festival related like our Puram, Thrissur Puram, and also the Sabarimala Stampede. They are all very important disasters that happened in Kerala. Then urban fires are increasing. Father has pointed out that different type of fires are there. That is that you can see in nature, and you see that the urban fires are increasing now. Oil spill, then village fires, boat capsizing, boat tragedies. Many school children have died boat capsizing in Kumaragam the last some 10 years back. Then forest fires, electrical disasters and fires, these are all very common. Electrical disasters are very common in Kerala, And you see that we have to be more careful in electrical disasters in the future days. Then comes the biologically related disasters, epidemics. Oh, you know that we have got number of epidemics now. We are under the threat, and food poisoning, cattle epidemics, pest attacks. You know, some of our coconut diseases, pest because of the uh, pest attacks. These are all coming under the biologically related hazards. So these are all, I have mentioned some 31 disasters that is very common in India. And when you come to this one, I will just show you one picture, how the warning system and preparedness are very useful in managing disasters. This is Hudhud cyclone 2014. I have told you in the first slide, I have shown you that first or second slide, I have shown you that the 1999 we had a Odisha super cyclone. Thousands of people died in Odisha super cyclone in 1990. But now where we are standing, in when the Hudhud cyclone happened in 2014, we were able to track the cyclonic front. 1 week before, next day, you can see that every day we are tracking where it is moving the cyclones, and you see that when it touches the coastal tract, we are able to give warning. If we give warning to the people along the coastal tract, we evacuate the people from this region, and you see that we succeeded. This is the success story of India in managing cyclone in 2014. And in the succeeding years also, we were able to do that. And because of you see that the cyclonic warning is given by Indian Meteorological Department, IMD, gives the warning for the cyclones. And for flood, you know, who is giving warning? You know that it is given by Central Water Commission, that is the Ministry of Water Resources. They give the warning for the flood situations. Okay. Now you see that in Kerala, we said that Oki cyclone in 2017. And you just see this one picture. You can just see how this one happened. You see that in Sri Lanka, it formed as a depression, small depression. And you see that it traveled like this one. It moved like this one in the northwest direction. In the northwest direction, it moved. It reached Kanyakumari. And you see that even now, you see that it was a depression. It was not a cyclone, but it is a depression. And you see that from the cyclone, deep depression, it turned very quickly to a cyclonic storm from here. Then it becomes a super cyclone within hours. This is the problem now. The extreme climatic events, what do you call this one? From deep depression, suddenly it is developing into a cyclonic storm. From the cyclonic storm, suddenly increasing to a super cyclonic storm. Like that, it is moving. Under this condition, even our predictions sometimes may not be able to, that may be enough for evacuating the people. But lucky for Kerala, you see that in 2017, we gave warning to the people, the fishermen, that we must be very careful, don't go to the sea like that. But you see that we know earlier we haven't experienced the cyclone, and therefore many people went to the sea for fishing and other thing, and they caught in trouble. And some people came back because of the warning, and they came back. So, but you see that very luckily for Kerala, you see that it passed very close to Kerala coast. But if this cyclone, if it entered like this, then you see that the story would have been the other way. It would have been destroyed the entire Kerala coast within an hour. But we are very lucky to have this. But we have to expect that the other cyclone that happened in 2021 also we can happen. It passed like this one, and it reached Gujarat coast, Maharashtra and Gujarat coast. We were able to survive that cyclonic storm. It came like this. the coast of Maharashtra and Gujarat. So this is the condition now. The extreme events and unexpected conditions are happening in Kerala. And this is another system that the early warning system. You see that when 2004, when the tsunami came, we were not having this system. This is called the Deep Ocean Assessment Radar mooring system. And you see that because of this one, you can see that this is the ocean floor. When there is some kind of disturbances at the ocean floor, then you see that the vibrations are that they are monitored. Now it is given to the buoy that is floating on the ocean. This is the seawater. It is floating. It is given to the buoy. This will record, and then by the GPS antenna, it is going to satellite. Through satellite, it is going to the land area, giving the advancement of the vibration. And you see that if they know that there is a earthquake happened in this area in the ocean, and if the earthquake is of greater magnitude, they can tell the people along the coastal tract that a tsunami is going to happen. So we can evacuate the people. Nobody will die. But in 2004, it was not like that. We were not having this warning system. But in Pacific Ocean, if you look at Japan and even Japan and other countries, if you look at America, they were having this kind of ocean assessment system even before that one, and they were able to give warning. And you see that because of the warning, they evacuated all the people, and nothing was there, and people did the right way, and you see that they could save the life of many people. So this is a good warning system for the tsunami. So we have got good warning system for tsunami, for cyclone, and all these kind of natural disasters. But still, we are not able to say when earthquake will happen. We are not able to say when the landslide will happen. Only thing that we can say is that earthquake, this area is prone to an earthquake of this much magnitude. This area is prone to this way. We can say that Delhi is prone to zone 4. That is zone 4. Kerala is zone 3. Magnitude of 6.5 magnitude of earthquake can happen in Kerala. In Himalayas and Assam, the magnitude of earthquake is beyond 9. That means total destruction can happen there. So we can make preparedness there. We can make the type of houses, what type of houses that we have to build in such areas, that we can make preparedness. That is how we survive. So this is what is called as the disaster management. And you see that in all these kind of disaster management practices, as far as Kerala is concerned, you know that Kerala is a small state. You take the adjacent Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, or all these areas, you can see that the area is totally different from that of Kerala. It's a small area, and you see that 570-kilometer long coastline that we are having. This is the Western Ghats. This is the high elevated region, and this is the coastal region where thickly populated Kochi, Alleppey, this coastal tract where the high density population is there. This is the Western Ghats where landslides can happen. And you see that these midland area, highland, midland, and lowland, all these areas are prone to flood, landslides, and other kind of disasters. So now Kerala is becoming a multi-hazardous state. It is multi-hazardous state. In 2016, we had the meteorological drought. And you see that everywhere the water table has gone down. And that actually have got a bad impact, negative impact on the yield of the agriculture products in Kerala. So we are actually under threat of different disasters. So what we have to do, we have to give a kind of awareness to the people. What are the do's and what are the don'ts? That is very important in disaster management. And Kerala, as far as Kerala is concerned, you see that the density population and types of disasters in Kerala, if you screen, you can see that it is prone to earthquake, it is prone to landslides, it is prone to coastal erosion and tsunami, it is prone to cyclone, it is prone to flood and drought, thunder and lightning, epidemics, and not that chemical and industrial disasters. And you see that many areas are prone to these kind of disasters, different kind of accidents, boat capsizing, dam burst. We are talking about that one in Villaperia and other kind of old dams. Then festival related disasters like Puram and other. So Kerala is a multi-hazardous state. We have to take something. We have to go for the disaster management activities at the right time. And you see that so we cannot, as I have told you, we cannot prevent these disasters that will happen. So what we can do is we try to reduce the impact of these disasters. And I think what are the different type of disasters and all these things I can continue in the next class, because we will talk in detail about the different disasters tomorrow. Okay, any discussion, any questions, we will discuss and we will end it. Hello.
Sir.
Yes, any questions?
So just no comments and no any questions are not asking. Okay, sir, I would like to thank you, sir, for your wonderful session. We get a lot of information from your talk. Now I would like to invite Salil Hadi for the vote of thanks.
Hello, am I audible? Hello? കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ടോ?
കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
Okay. Good afternoon all of you. നമുക്കെല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം, നമ്മളിവിടെ എല്ലാവരും ഒരുമിച്ച് കൂടിയിരിക്കുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ ഓഡിറ്റ് കോഴ്സിന്റെ ഭാഗമായ ഡിസാസ്റ്റർ മാനേജ്മെന്റിന്റെ അവയർനെസ് പ്രോഗ്രാമിലാണ്. അപ്പോ ചോരത്തളപ്പുള്ള യുവാക്കൾ എന്ന നിലക്ക് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് അത് ഞങ്ങളുടെ കടമയാണെന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇങ്ങനൊരു സെഷൻ ഇവിടെ ഒരുക്കി തന്ന IQACയെയും പിന്നെ അതുപോലെ നമ്മുടെ റിസോഴ്സ് പേഴ്സണായ നമ്മളുടെ എന്താണ് ഡിസാസ്റ്റർ മാനേജ്മെന്റ് എന്നും അതിന്റെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ് എന്താണെന്നും നമുക്ക് വളരെ നല്ലൊരു സെഷനിലൂടെ മനസ്സിലാക്കി തന്ന Dr.S ശ്രീകുമാർ സർ, IRTC ഡയറക്ടർ Dr.S ശ്രീകുമാർ സാറിനും എന്റെ ഹൃദയത്തിന്റെ അടിത്തട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് നന്ദി അറിയിച്ചു കൊള്ളുന്നു. അതുപോലെ നമ്മുടെ ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിന് വേണ്ടി പിന്നിൽ നിന്ന് പ്രവർത്തിച്ച നമ്മുടെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പളായ ഡോക്ടർ മാർട്ടിൻ കെ സാറിനും അതുപോലെ നമ്മുടെ പ്രിയങ്കരായ ഡോക്ടർ ഡാവിഡ് CV സാറിനും അതുപോലെ ഡോക്ടർ വിമല മിസ്സിനും എന്റെ ഈ അവസരത്തിൽ ഞാൻ നന്ദി അറിയിച്ചു കൊള്ളുന്നു. എന്റെ വാക്കുകൾ നിർത്തുന്നു. എല്ലാവർക്കും നന്ദി. താങ്ക് യു ആൻഡ് ഹാവ് എ നൈസ് ഡേ.
Okay, thank you. So tomorrow we will meet at 2 o'clock, isn't it?
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So every time some problem will be there for the sharing.
No problem.
I mean, it is there because this is the new one, new platform.
Yeah.
കാരണം ഗൂഗിൾ ഇതും അതിൽ നിന്നും വ്യത്യാസമുണ്ട്. ഇത് ഗൂഗിളും സൂമും ഒക്കെ തമ്മിൽ. ഓക്കെ,
പക്ഷെ നല്ല കുറെ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻസ് ലേറ്റസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളത് കിട്ടി സാറേ.
ആ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ. നാളെ നമ്മൾ കുറച്ചുകൂടെ ഈ ഫോട്ടോസും ഒക്കെ പുതിയ ഈവൻസിന്റെ ഒക്കെ കാണിക്കാം. സോ ദാറ്റ് വിൽ ബി മോർ യൂസ്ഫുൾ ഫോർ.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
ഓക്കെ.